Let's talk about the new statistics that was released by the Daily News this week, and we were talking about it, that there are very few places one can live in New York City if you only make about $8.75 an hour. In fact, it's really nearly impossible to find a home that you can afford.
Yeah, according to the study, a person must make almost $39 an hour just to afford an apartment at the median price of $2,960 in New York City. So has the Big Apple gotten so expensive that most people who live here can't really afford it? So here to discuss this topic with us as further is Reverend Michael Waldron Jr., senior pastor at the First Corinthian Baptist Church and a supporter of the Fight for 15 initiative. So thanks for joining us this morning.
Pleasure to be here.
Let's be real here. All right, even if they were to raise the minimum wage to $15, can a person, frankly, afford to live in New York City on that amount of money?
No, I think we applaud the efforts of those who have worked very hard, I think, to raise the minimum wage and push it to 15. But even the statistics show that 15 is not nearly enough to really survive in New York. Right now on minimum wage, there is no place in New York City where you can afford to live, really, based on the average cost of rent.
All right, so we broke it down by the numbers for you so you can get a clearer picture of what exactly that means. Because when you say, you know, all this per hour, a person could only afford a $946 apartment a month for rent if they earned $8.73 an hour. And also, the proposed minimum wage of $15 an hour, a person could only afford about $1,040 for rent. And that's at the stretch of it. Now, if you put in together kids and a family and other expenses, that's where it gets so difficult. So, Pastor Mike, I just want you to give us a sense of why the squeeze is felt so hard for a lot of people who are just struggling.
Yeah, I think in this city from about 2001 to 2013, you saw an increase in wealth polarization. You saw an increase in income inequality. You saw an increase in homelessness to record numbers that we hadn't seen in this city since the Great Depression. And people are having to make some hard choices. When you have to make a choice between paying rent and feeding your family and trying to keep lights on, it is difficult. And people are having to make these decisions. And there's not the kind of, I think, economic structures in place with regard to minimum wages that allow people to just survive in this city.
Of course. Plus, we're seeing so many people getting pushed out of neighborhoods as, of course, not only here in Manhattan, but Brooklyn, in specific areas of Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, East New York. The rents are going up. We profiled those neighborhoods just a few months ago about how high rents are going. So should there be more affordable housing in all 5 boroughs?
Yes, I think there has to be more affordable housing. You know, I had a conversation with someone the other day, and I said that we pride ourselves here in New York that for generations we were the gateway to opportunity to this country. You know, there in the harbor, you know, send me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, and yet there are people who are here living in poverty when 46% of New Yorkers are living at or below poverty. That is tragic, and it is hard for people to even conceptualize seeking to live. And yes, there has to be more affordable housing, and I believe the mayor is really pushing that. There has to be more opportunities that really have people trained for jobs that are of the future, which are highly skilled jobs. So I agree. I think it's sad.
There's so many levels to it. We want to put out other graphics because we want you to really get a sense of really the struggle that's here in Manhattan. You know, you would need to earn $44.60 an hour because the average price of an apartment is $3,092. Brooklyn, $35.87 an hour, 87 cents, $2,500 if you want to just round out, and $29.21 an hour to live in Queens, $26.21 an hour to live in Staten Island. Let's not forget about the Bronx at $21.26, and we have to add in tolls. We have to add in transportation. We have to add all these other things that are needed, and that's why a lot of people say, hey, you know what? It's going to be difficult for me because I need some of these subsidies to be able to feed some of my family members. I need to be able to qualify to get those things to put food on the table for my kids.
Look, there are people who are working, families who have 2 wage earners working full time and are still having to look to shelters to provide shelter for their family. And there are persons who are working hard in this city and who are still looking to public assistance and food stamps. That means the wage has to increase. In Harlem, where I live, the average rent is $2,400 a month, and the median income is $22,000.
That does not equate.
It does not equate. It is impossible.
That's the problem. The problem is that the rents are rising, but the salaries are staying the same, and they're not going up with the times as well. And that's a big problem. People getting squeezed out.
It's a real discussion that needs to be had.
And people are being priced out. You know, people who are long-term residents of these communities who stayed in these communities through the difficult times in New York City. The reward now is that they're being priced out and pushed out of their communities.
Some of the cheaper places that we did our research on, Throgs Neck in the Bronx, New Dorp on Staten Island, Hunts Point in the Bronx, and Far Rockaway in Queens. Thank you so much for having an honest discussion, because we do feel the squeeze, and so do our viewers.
Well,
and it's nice to give context to something and put a face on this, because sometimes when you just hear $15 an hour, it doesn't compute.
At all.
It doesn't.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.